I raised my stepdaughter like my own. Then her real mom came back, and she threw me away like I meant nothing. For 15 years, I raised my stepdaughter, Emma, as if she were my own flesh and blood. Her real mom? She walked out when Emma was a baby, never called, never sent a dime, never looked back. I was the one who stayed up with her when she was sick, who helped her with homework, who wiped her tears when life got tough. I thought we had a bond that couldn't be broken. Then, out of nowhere, her biological mother showed up. And just like that, Emma forgot everything I had done for her. She packed her bags, called me a liar, and ran straight into the arms of the woman who had abandoned her. I thought I had lost her forever. But when she finally realized the truth, it was already too late. Before we jump into today's video, I need your help. We've noticed the channel is losing some traction, and subscribing is one of the best ways you can support us. It's quick, free, and it helps us keep bringing you awesome content. Your support means the world. Let's keep this channel growing together. Thanks so much. Now let's start the video. For 15 years, I was Emma's mother in every way that mattered. Her biological mom, Sarah, walked out when she was just a baby. No calls, no letters, no child support, nothing. She vanished like we had never existed, leaving my husband Mark and me to pick up the pieces. And I did. I raised Emma like she was my own flesh and blood. I braided her hair for school, helped her with her first science project, sat through hours of piano recitals and soccer games. I held her when she cried, celebrated every victory, and never once reminded her that I wasn't her real mother, because in my heart, I was. She even called me mom without hesitation. I thought that meant something, but I was wrong because the moment her real mother showed up again, Emma forgot I ever existed. It started with a phone call. I was cooking dinner when Emma, now 16 years old, walked into the kitchen, her face lit up with excitement. "Mom, guess what? Sarah called me." I nearly dropped the pan. I hadn't heard that name in over a decade. I turned slowly, wiping my hands on a towel. "What do you mean Sarah called you?" Emma rolled her eyes, not picking up on the tension in my voice. "She reached out. She said she's been thinking about me a lot and wants to catch up. Isn't that great?" I forced a tight smile. "Emma, where has she been for the last 15 years? She shrugged. "She said she had a lot going on, but now she's in a good place and wants to make up for lost time." I felt my stomach twist. "Sweetheart, I don't want you to get hurt," I said carefully. Her face darkened. "Hurt? Mom, she's my real mother. Why wouldn't I want to know her?" That stung, not Mom, not the woman who raised me, just my real mother. And in that moment, I felt something deep inside me crack, because I knew this wasn't going to end well. I wanted to be supportive. I wanted to believe that maybe, just maybe, Sarah had truly changed, that she had grown up and realized what she had missed out on. But deep down, I knew better. People like Sarah didn't just wake up one day and decide to be responsible. They didn't abandon their child for 15 years and suddenly, out of nowhere, feel the urge to make things right. No. There was a reason for this sudden reappearance, and I was going to find out what it was. But Emma, she wasn't listening. Over the next few weeks, she was glued to her phone, texting Sarah constantly. It was like I had suddenly disappeared from her world. She stopped coming to me with her problems, stopped sharing stories from school, stopped asking for my help with anything. One night, I walked past her room and heard her giggling on the phone. I paused at the door, listening. "Yeah, Mom, I know. I can't believe it either. You're like so much cooler than I expected." I froze. Mom? She had never once hesitated to call me that. But now, suddenly, Sarah was the one getting that title. Like the past 15 years meant nothing. I swallowed the lump in my throat and knocked gently on the door. "Hey, sweetie, can I talk to you for a sec?" She sighed loudly. "Ugh, 1 second, Mom." She was annoyed with me, like I was some inconvenience in her new life. She ended the call and turned to me, her arms crossed. "What?" I forced a smile. "I just wanted to check in. You've been spending a lot of time talking to Sarah lately." She rolled her eyes. "Yeah, so what?" I ignored the sharp sting in my chest. I want to make sure you're being careful. She's been gone for a long time, honey. I don't want you to get your hopes up and, God, why do you always do this?" She snapped, standing up so fast her chair nearly tipped over. "You never want me to be happy. You just want to control everything." I blinked, stunned. "That's not true, Emma. No, she cut me off, her voice shaking with anger. Sarah actually cares about me. She wants to make up for lost time, and all you want to do is ruin it. I felt the air leave my lungs. She actually believed that. After everything I had done for her, she really thought I was just some jealous obstacle in the way of her perfect reunion. I opened my mouth to respond, but she was already grabbing her phone, dialing. Sarah? Yeah, it's me. Can you come get me? I can't do this anymore. I took a step back, my heart pounding. Emma, what are you doing? She glared at me. I'm moving in with my real mom, and just like that, my worst fear had come true. She was leaving me, for the woman who had never wanted her. I stood there frozen as Emma packed her bags with a speed that told me she had already made up her mind. She wasn't just angry, she was convinced that I had been keeping her away from something better, that everything I had done for her was nothing compared to the fantasy Sarah had been selling her. I wanted to scream. I wanted to shake her and tell her, "Wake up! You have no idea what you're walking into." But I didn't, because I knew that nothing I said would change her mind. So I stood in the doorway and watched her zip up her suitcase, my chest aching with every single movement she made. Emma, I finally said, my voice barely above a whisper. Please don't do this. She sighed loudly like I was a burden. Mom, you just don't get it. Sarah isn't the same person she used to be. She's changed. She wants to be in my life. I clenched my jaw. And what about me? She hesitated. For just a second I saw something flash across her face. Guilt. But then she shook her head and turned back to stuffing clothes into her bag. You'll be fine, she muttered. You always are. My stomach dropped. That was when I knew. I had already lost her. A car horn blared outside, and Emma lit up like a child on Christmas morning. She grabbed her bag and pushed past me like I was nothing more than a roadblock on her way to happiness. I followed her out onto the porch, my heart pounding as I saw Sarah step out of a sleek black SUV, dressed like she had just walked out of a luxury ad. She grinned when she saw Emma, arms wide open like she had been waiting for this moment her whole life. "There's my girl!" she cooed. Emma ran to her, ran, like I wasn't even standing there, like I hadn't spent the past 15 years being the only real parent she ever had. Sarah wrapped her arms around her like she was reclaiming her property. Then she looked up at me, smirking, like she had won. And for the first time in my life, I had nothing left to say. I just stood there, watching as Emma climbed into Sarah's car without a second thought, without a glance back. The car door slammed, the engine revved, and just like that, she was gone. For the next few weeks, my house felt emptier than ever. No laughter, no music playing from her room. No late-night talks about school, boys, and her dreams. Just silence. At first, she sent texts. Short, shallow ones. Emma. Made it to Mom's place. We're going shopping today. Sarah's house is amazing, Mom. She even got me my own room. I didn't respond. Because I knew what this was. She was trying to prove that leaving me was the right choice. That she had upgraded to a better life. I let her. Because I knew the truth. I knew Sarah. And I knew that the fantasy she was selling wouldn't last. And when Emma finally realized that, she would learn that some mistakes can't be undone. The first few weeks after Emma left were unbearable. I had spent 15 years raising her, loving her, sacrificing for her. And now she was gone, treating me like I was just some bitter stepmother in the way of her perfect reunion. My house, once filled with her music, her laughter, her presence, felt empty. At first, I told myself she'd come back soon, that she'd realize this was just a fantasy, that Sarah wasn't the magical, doting mother she was pretending to be. But as time passed, all I got from Emma were texts that made my stomach turn. Emma, Sarah just bought me a new phone. We're going to the spa this weekend. I've never been treated like this before. Mom, you were wrong about her. She really loves me. I didn't respond, not because I didn't want to, but because I knew that nothing I said would change her mind. She had to see it for herself. I went through the motions of my life, trying to pretend I wasn't broken. I went to work. I cooked meals for one. I sat on the couch at night, staring at my phone, willing her to call and tell me she was coming home. But she never did. Instead, I heard from other people. My sister called one afternoon, her voice careful. I ran into one of Emma's friends today, she said, and I thought you should know. Things aren't as perfect as she's making them seem. I sat up straight. What do you mean? Well, my sister hesitated. At first, Sarah was treating her like a princess, taking her shopping, buying her expensive things, making her feel like she was the most important person in the world. But now, it sounds like she's barely home. She leaves Emma alone all the time, cancels plans, and when she is around, she's cold, like she's already tired of pretending to be a mother. I swallowed hard, my hands gripping the phone. I had seen this coming. I knew Sarah wasn't capable of being a real mother. She had swooped in, showered Emma with gifts, given her everything she ever wanted, except for what really mattered. She's realizing it now, my sister continued. Her friend said she seemed off lately, quieter, like she's figuring out that this isn't the perfect life she thought it would be. I felt a mix of emotions, anger, sadness, relief. Part of me wanted to call Emma immediately, to tell her I told you this would happen, but I didn't, because I knew she wasn't ready to hear it yet. Then, a week later, I got a text that nearly broke me. Emma, hey Mom, do you think I could stop by to pick up some stuff? It was the first real olive branch she had offered since she left. I replied instantly. Me, of course, sweetheart. You're always welcome here. She showed up that afternoon, standing in my doorway, looking different. The excitement was gone from her eyes, replaced with something I hadn't seen in a long time. Doubt. She walked inside hesitantly, glancing around like she expected something to have changed. She barely said a word as she moved through the house, gathering some of her old things. But as she stood in her bedroom, the one I had kept exactly as she left it, she finally turned to me, her voice small. Mom, did Sarah ever try to reach out before now? The question made my heart ache. I took a slow breath, steadying myself. No, sweetheart, she never did. Emma's jaw tightened. Not once? I shook my head. Not once. She let out a shaky breath, sinking onto her old bed. She barely talks to me now, she admitted. At first she was all over me, telling me how much she loved me and how she wanted to make up for lost time. But now, she's always busy or too tired. It's like... She trailed off, staring at the floor. Like she lost interest? I finished softly. She nodded, swallowing hard. Yeah. I sat beside her, placing a hand over hers. I know this hurts, sweetheart, and I know you wanted to believe in her. Her chin trembled. I thought she cared. I really did. I squeezed her hand gently. I know, and that's not your fault. Her voice broke. Why wasn't I enough? My heart shattered. I pulled her into my arms, rubbing her back like I had when she was little. This was never about you not being enough, Emma, I whispered. This was about her not being enough. She left because she wasn't capable of being a mother, and no amount of time or money was ever going to change that. She cried into my shoulder, all the hurt and disappointment spilling out in waves. And in that moment, I knew. She finally saw the truth. She had been chasing a fantasy, and in the process, she had nearly lost the one person who had always been there. But now, she was finally home. Emma stayed the night. She didn't say she was moving back in, but she didn't have to. I could see it in the way she curled up in her old bed, how she exhaled in relief, as if she had been holding her breath for months. The next morning, I found her sitting at the kitchen table, stirring a cup of coffee mindlessly. She looked exhausted, like she hadn't slept in days. Did she call? I asked, already knowing the answer. Emma shook her head. She never does. I sighed, sitting across from her. Sweetheart, you don't have to pretend anymore. I know things with Sarah aren't how you imagine. She let out a bitter laugh. That's an understatement. I didn't push, I just waited. Finally, after a long silence, she spoke. At first she made me feel like I was the most important person in the world, she said, staring down at her coffee. She took me everywhere, bought me things, introduced me to her friends. I thought, this is it. This is what I've been missing my whole life. Her voice cracked, and she blinked hard, like she was trying to keep herself from crying. But then, she got bored. She swallowed hard. The trip stopped. The shopping stopped. She started canceling plans, coming home late, barely acknowledging me. It was like once the excitement of having me around wore off, she didn't know what to do with me. My chest ached for her. I had known this was coming. I had tried to warn her, but she had to see it for herself. Last week I asked her if we could have a night together, just the two of us, no distractions. She told me she was busy. Emma clenched her jaw. But later, I saw her posting pictures at some party with her friends. Her voice broke at the end, and I reached across the table, taking her hand. She shook her head, her anger and heartbreak spilling out all at once. She never wanted me, Mom. She just wanted to prove that she could have me, and I was so stupid. I believe she actually cared. I squeezed her hand. You're not stupid, Emma. You just wanted to believe in her. That doesn't make you foolish. That makes you human. She let out a shaky breath. I thought she was my real mom, but the truth is, she's just a woman who happened to give birth to me. You're the one who raised me. You're my real mom. I felt tears welling in my own eyes. Oh, sweetheart, you have no idea how much I needed to hear that. She wiped her face and exhaled deeply, like she was finally releasing the weight she had been carrying. I want to come home, she whispered. I squeezed her hand. Then come home. And just like that, I got my daughter back. A few days later, Emma packed up her things and left Sarah's house. There were no fights, no dramatic goodbyes, just a simple, emotionless exchange. Sarah barely blinked when she told her she was leaving. That was all the confirmation Emma needed. I could see the hurt in her, the deep wound that Sarah had left. But I also saw growth. She had learned a hard lesson, one I wished she had never needed to learn. One night, as we sat on the couch watching TV, Emma turned to me and said, I should have listened to you. I wrapped my arm around her. You had to see it for yourself, but I'm glad you finally did. She smiled softly. Thank you for not giving up on me. I kissed the top of her head. Never. Sarah had lost interest in Emma the moment she stopped being a trophy, a way to prove that she was still relevant. But me, I was never leaving, because that's what real mothers do. Some parents think they can walk away from their children and just come back when it's convenient. Sarah thought she could pick up where she left off, that she could buy Emma's love, erase the past with shopping trips and vacations. But parenthood isn't about grand gestures. It's about showing up every single day. Emma had to learn that the hard way, and in the process, she almost lost the person who had always been there for her. Have you ever had someone take you for granted, only to realize the truth too late? Drop your stories in the comments. I'd love to hear them.